Welcome to the Big Ten Week 2 reaction of the Five-Star Zone. I'm your host, Rico Beard. And for the Big Ten, it was actually a really good weekend. They went 15-3. And not only did they go 15-3, but they beat the hell out of some teams. I mean, my goodness, with Nebraska shutting out Akron 68-0, Ohio State 70-0 over Grambling State. This was a weekend where you saw a lot of the second and third and heck, maybe even walk-ons out there for a lot of teams in the Big Ten because it really was no contest at all. Heck, even Purdue is now 2-0, 34-17 win over Southern Illinois. Washington 70-0 over UC. 70-10 over UC Davis. You get it. The Big Ten had 3 losses. One, UCLA, which is getting to be a little concerning because they paid a lot of money for Nico Iamaleava, and they lose their second game, down big double digits at halftime again. Tried to come back. Nico throws a pick in the final minute of the game against UNLV. They lose 30-23. The other game's Iowa State, the Cy-Hawk Trophy, and Iowa once again loses to the same kicker from Iowa State, kicks another 54-yard field goal just like last year. Iowa could not come back and couldn't convert on a fourth down, and Iowa ends up losing in the game where it was high scoring in the state of Iowa. For everybody else, it was not, 16-13. The other loss is where we're going to start. It was Michigan going to Oklahoma and losing that game against Oklahoma Sooners and 24-13. If you watch the game, it really wasn't even that close. Oklahoma shot themselves in the foot from, bad penalties, roughing it. It was a punt that they roughed the kicker. They muffed a punt. They gave Michigan the ball where Michigan kicks a field goal. If it wasn't for that, I think this score probably would have been about 35-10. But it ended up being 24-13. And John Mateer, he may have become the favorite to win the Heisman. He put up some video game-like numbers. Let me make sure I get these right. Mateer, 21 for 34, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, passing 74 yards, running 2 touchdowns, running the ball in. He was in control. They drove the ball down the first drive and scored. They set the tone, and Michigan never really answered. And it left a lot of people scratching their head. Heck, they even had a little bit of a dust-up on the sideline between Bryce Underwood and Justice Hayes. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but Underwood probably has to realize that the cameras are following him at all time, and you just can't sit there and do whatever you want, son. I'm sorry, but you got paid a lot of money. Cameras are following you. You're the face of the program. You got to watch what you're doing publicly because even if it is inauspicious, it still doesn't have a good look. But speaking of not a good look, I think we can officially say that, his September Heisman is over. He goes into this game, and he's not the reason why they lost, but I think we can understand he's a freshman. He is the first time he's out playing in a place that wasn't fan-friendly, in a place where they weren't chanting his name, in a place where, let's face it, everybody in the field and on the stadium didn't want him to succeed. Bryce ends up going 9 for 24 for 142 yards, passing, no touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over, but it was not a great game, and I think it came back down to reality that he may not be the savior that everybody thinks he's going to be right now. Now, let's hit the pause button for a second. It's not to say that down the line this kid can't do that, but you got to be patient. You can't. The problem, we live in a microwave society. You want everything now. You want everything, 10 minutes ago. And it's going to take some time. And the irony is where a lot of Michigan fans last year kind of made fun of Aiden Childs and Michigan State. I think that's what you're going to see a lot of Michigan fans have to go through. It's the growing pains. He's a brand new quarterback. I don't care how much money the kid is making. This is all brand new to him. He's got confidence, and sometimes that confidence and swagger can be your own downfall where you think you can do everything. But it's college. Everybody was a team captain in high school. Everybody was fast. Everybody can do all of these things, and it's going to be a gigantic learning curve. Now, here's the other thing. The Michigan offensive line looked like they suffered some injuries on that offensive line, but it was already pretty bad. This is not the same offensive line you've seen the University of Michigan have over the last couple of years when they were going to the college football playoffs. This line is different. If it wasn't for Justice Hayes kind of just taking one to the house for the first play of the second half, he got 75 yards in that, and that helped, the Michigan running game. Other than that, I think he was held to under 40 yards. I mean, you weren't holding your blocks. You weren't giving Bryce a ton of time. And it just seems like the Oklahoma Sooners were in the backfield, almost like they knew your plays. That's gonna be very problematic going down the line. And also the Michigan defense as well. But we'll get to that in a second. But Michigan offensive line was bad. And now comes the question that a lot of people are asking. Okay, was it Bryce just being brand new, or is your OC and your coach not really putting him in the best position? And the story could be a little bit of both. But I think they are trying to protect that young man because they know too much too fast is not going to be a good thing. They can't just open up the playbook. And I know everybody thinks it's a video game and, oh, my God, just let him hurl the ball deep. In order to hurl the ball deep, guess what you need? You need some blocking. You need some people to protect him. If not, as he winds up to throw it deep, he's going to get blindside hit and possibly injured. That offense is not ready. And look, aside from the one catch by the wide receiver that Michigan had, that circus catch, the passing game really wasn't that great. So what do you need to do? Patience. And I think what they're trying to do is establish the run, except for, like I said before, your offensive line is not really that great this year. So you're not able to establish a run. If you can't establish a run, the play action really doesn't work. The tight end doesn't work. The wide receiver, the bubble screens, all of that. And no, they are not going to just let Bryce run around because he's much too valuable. I don't think that quarterback room is healthy. And Michigan fans, if Bryce Underwood goes down, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because I don't know if you got a healthy backup that's ready to play. Now, you're going to find out a little bit more about this team. You should go out and beat Central Michigan, though you will be without head coach Sharon Moore because he's starting his 2-game suspension for this year. He still has another game for next season, but he's starting his 2-game suspension this week against Central Michigan. We'll have more about that when we break it down. But yeah, Michigan, one of the 3 teams in the Big Ten that loses their game. They lose to Oklahoma, a ranked team on the road. This was a kind of a statement game because it was going to let me know where the Wolverines are. And now I see where they are. And they're right in the middle of the pack with the rest of the Big Ten. Like it or not, it looks like Ohio State. It looks like Oregon. It looks like Penn State. And then there's a lot of teams in between that I don't really know how good they are, like Illinois. They defeat Duke. Don't know how good they are. Heck, like I said, Purdue is sitting there at 2-0. Another team sitting there at 2-0. Michigan State Spartans went to double overtime, and what was another statement game here in the state of Michigan for Jonathan Smith. This was one where you lose, and I think you were going to get apathy to invade the fan base, that they were going to be sitting up waiting for midnight madness. But he won the game. As a matter of fact, the way that he did win in double overtime, where, look, Nick Marsh was a beast. Nick Marsh went into the locker room at halftime and basically told the coaches, "Get me the damn ball." And he said it very emphatically, so much so that the other wide receivers, including Amari Kelly sitting next to him, was like, yeah, maybe we need to get him the ball if he feels this fired up. Nick goes out there. Nick has 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. The first touchdown he had in the first quarter was that was a grown man play. He dragged 5 Boston College defenders into the end zone with him. He should have been stopped at the 7-yard line, but he carried 3 guys 7 yards into the end zone. He had not quite the breakout game of last year against Maryland, but it was a game where you saw a different Nick Marsh. You saw a stronger Nick Marsh, a Nick Marsh that was willing to be that guy. And because he was that guy, he actually helped his team out later on because so many people from Boston College, especially in the final drive in double overtime, 2-point conversion, If you go back and watch, I think 3 or 4 people from Boston College followed him, which left Kelly and the tight end wide open. Childs could have thrown to either one of those guys. He throws to Kelly for the 2 point conversion, and MSU walks away. Childs probably, not even probably, Childs had his best game as a Michigan State Spartan. 19 of 29, 231 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for 39 yards, including 2 impressive runs, and scored the game winning, well, the game tying touchdown. And then they won on the 2 point conversion the very next play. You also had Alante Brown. He had 2 kick returns for 100 yards, averaging 50 yards for a kick return. He put Michigan State in a great position to continue going because things were not looking great. And Ryan Eckley just flipping the field. He had 2 balls down at the 1 yard line. The reason why I'm saying that because MSU's yet to put together a complete game. Week 1, the defense was phenomenal. They should have had the shutout. As a matter of fact, they did have a shutout. The only points that Western Michigan scored was off a pick 6, but roles got reversed. It was the special teams. It was Michigan State's new kicker going out there and kicking 2 field goals, including a 50-yarder. They needed all the points that they could get, and the defense let them down. Matter of fact, Dylan, what is his name? Dylan, hold on. Dylan Lonergan was out there looking like Josh Allen. I mean, he wasn't missing anything. 34 for 49. He had 4 passing touchdowns, 390 yards. He was whatever. They got no pressure to him. I don't even think they touched him once. He had a couple of balls that may have been picked, but other than that, I think the biggest thing, if I was Boston College fan, I would have been angry because when they scored in the first overtime, I would have just lined up and went for 2 because MSU hadn't stopped you all game. You could have ended the game right there, but you didn't. You kicked that extra point. And I think right then and there, you lost that ball game because, like I said, Lonergan, he had his way. That defense. And then at first I thought, well, maybe they just need to, maybe Joe Rossi just needs to bring the pressure. But upon further review, they did. He did. They blitzed. And that's how ineffective it was. He was bringing 5 and 6 people up there, and nothing happened. They couldn't get to the quarterback, and that was the difference. You figured either you got to get a fumble, you got to get something, and they did. Shout out Jordan Hall getting that fumble early in the game on the 1 yard line when it looked like my man Turbo was going to go in there. Turbo Richard was going to score. But they got that, and when you really look back at it, that may have been the play of the game. You just didn't realize that early in the game that was going to be the difference maker in there. But Jonathan Smith did something with this team. He rallied them for the first time since Prairie View that they outscored their opponent in the second half. Michigan State goes out there and scores a bunch of points, and that's where I guess that's where you look at it and say, yeah, this is the team that you were hoping to see for a while. They score, what was it, 28 points in the second half. Haven't seen that type of a play in a long time. Now I think the goal for the Spartans are to win at least 3 of the next 4 games if you want to keep on pace to win 8 to 9 games. But we'll get to a lot of that later. But like I said, I just wanted to break down those games. Overall, Big Ten kicked ass. I mean, like I said, some of the scores, even Northwestern, 42-7 over Western Illinois. Maryland, I guess it's a struggle at home against Northern Illinois, only 20-9. Penn State took a little bit of time for Penn State to kick it into gear, but they knocked off Florida International 34-0. Indiana over Kennesaw State. I mean, what'd you expect? It's Kennesaw State 56-9. I say all that to say it was a big week. Now I think next week you're going to see things get a little tighter as some of the teams will, some of the games of the conference games will start up. So Oregon at Northwestern. You're also going to have Wisconsin traveling to Alabama, which I think we'll get to see what Wisconsin's really like. Who else is playing anything big? Minnesota and Cal. That's going to be something to watch out for. But other than that, and then UCLA and New Mexico. We've already seen New Mexico. Let's see if UCLA can bounce back and get that first victory. So, all right, I'll be back later on in the week. We're going to break down all of these games. But like I said, this was just kind of a wrap up of what happened. And what happened in the Big Ten was kind of indicative of what happened just across the board, where most of your favorites went out there and got the job done. And they, like I said, this was just like backup weekend where all your backup players got some time to go out there and get the uniform dirty and for mom to get some photos and videos of them doing things. Not a lot of intrigue, not a lot of separation in the Big Ten because I really don't know what a lot of these teams are as of yet. Ohio State, you beat Grambling State. Okay, they're not Texas, but 70-0. Once again, it tells me nothing except for you did your job, you did what you were supposed to do, and we move on. Like I said, I'll be happy once we finally, I think in 2 weeks, get to full conference play where you start playing each other. And then, we separate the wheat from the chaff and we start to see who's good, who's not, who we should pay attention to, who could be going to the playoffs, who's a contender, who's a pretender, all of those types of things. But like I said, for right now, Big Ten down to three main teams. And because Illinois, I still don't know. I don't think Michigan is going to be there at the end. I do think Ohio State. Oregon, hey, newsflash, note to the Oklahoma State head coach. You may not want to talk trash to Oregon because Oregon showed you exactly how they feel about you. They beat you 69-3. Mike Gundy went out there and said, well, we'd have had the Oregon money. And it's just like, dude, you got T-Boone Pickett money. You got money at Oklahoma State. It's right up there with Nike money. You may want to keep your trap shut and not take that beat down. Dan Lanning was no way ever going to call off the Dogs, and he didn't. 69-3 over Oklahoma State. That was personal. That felt personal, and I think everybody who saw it knew it was personal. So, anyway, I will be back with Harold later on in the week, and we're going to give the preview of week 3 of what's going on in the Big Ten, and I'll get Harold's perspective of what happened this past week. But for right now, it's just kind of an instant reaction to Big Ten week 2. Not a lot of intrigue, 3 losses. I guess the biggest one were Iowa losing to Iowa State, and like I said, Michigan going on the road and losing to Oklahoma. I'm Rico Beard. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone.